Good morning, everybody. I haven't got this camera quite right. Let me just move it. You just see a little bit of motion. There we go. Let me get myself a bit central there. There we are. How are we all doing today? Now, I'm going to turn this music off in a minute. I'm just waiting. I do have the stream playing on another computer. I just want to make sure I hear myself talking, and then I'll be able to turn it off. Here we go. Let me just move on over and then I can mute this. I've lost the mouse. Right. There we go. And hopefully I can turn my sound off there. So now you won't hear me twice. How's everybody going? It's another coldish day. Well, warmer than it has been, but I'm afraid the bean is staying on today. I'm being monitored by Groku. He sat there watching me, make sure I don't do anything stupid. And what have we got on the other side? What can we see on the other side? Where's that mouse gone? Oh, we've got the Starship Enterprise up there as well, watching on, making sure again that I don't go to warp speed. Yeah, Blonde Scales 1. It's not as bad as it has been. I'm really not doing well today. There we go. Monday was very cold. I mean, Monday it was down to something like 4 degrees Celsius, which I know for a lot of places is quite warm. But here, we've lived here, 18 years, so it feels cold. Today, let me just check, 10 degrees at the moment. My hands, they're what's cold. Funny story about Monday, though, because it was so cold, I had a couple of pens that normally don't give me a problem, and they were really playing me up on Monday. And what I think it is, I think it might be because it was so cold, it may be that it was affecting the ink flow a little bit. So what I'm going to have to do is hopefully keep those pens hanging around until we warm up a little bit, then try it again then. Just really wondering, is it actually something to do with the temperature? I'm guessing it is, but I'll say that's just a guess on my side. So today, don't forget, I need to keep remembering to tell people this. Don't forget, we've got the live chat going on. If you pop your messages in there, so Blonde Scales 1 have been asking about the cold and saying where they are. It's nice and warm. And then Marie is hot there too. Yeah, the background. I'm guessing Marie's in the US, so they've got the 4th of July. It comes up, Tuesday? But I'm guessing that, like here when we have celebrations, the fireworks start going off about a week before, and all you hear for a week is fireworks. I've got to be honest, one of the things I miss about the UK, and we're going slightly off topic, I'm good at going off topic. One of the things I miss about the UK is 5th of November was bonfire night, where you had the big bonfires and you had the big firework displays. And, in the UK, you could just go and buy from the shops fireworks. Here in Australia, fireworks are really regulated. Australia Day, they have them, which is in January, 26th of January. New Year, everybody sees the Sydney Opera House fireworks, but here, you can't just go and buy them. I think you have to be licensed. In a way, I think that's a good idea, but it takes a little bit of spontaneity out of it. Blonde Scales 1, most of the week I've had excessive heat warnings. Yeah, again, living in Australia, we get used to that in the summer. I say we're midwinter now. I'm saying it's cold. It's not, as I said. It's just I'm feeling it. I'm getting old, I think, so I'm feeling the cold more. And then Blonde Scales, no fireworks going yet where she is or he is. Remember, if I say a pronoun, I get it wrong, let me know, because I don't want to let people think that I'm trying to ignore that, but I'm just crap at really remembering things like that. So, today's agenda. What I thought we'd do, as you may have seen from a post I put out earlier on in the week, is I'm going to look at the 8 questions tag. So I've seen quite a lot of videos from different people doing this. And I thought, yes, Garry, why not give it a go yourself? What I've tried to do is I've tried to as much as possible, not look at the questions. So I haven't scripted this, with the exception of question number 6, but when we get to it, you'll understand why. So hopefully we'll get there. So a couple more comments. Marie wishes it more regulated. So she's in Michigan. Yeah, what part of me likes the idea, and you can't beat a proper organised firework display. Some of them are absolutely amazing. But, you know, I said growing up in the UK where you could just buy them, you know, the downside of that, I say at least a week before you had these fireworks going. Blonde Scales 1, thank you for confirming that, she. Hopefully I'll remember that for the future. Okay, what I'm going to do is just launch this up. Let's start going through the 8 questions. I will try and look at the comments as we're going through this. Can't guarantee because of the way it works. For some reason, it hides my comments. Jodie Miller, again, Jodie Miller there, very regulated in the southwest of the United States. Yeah, I can understand that. So let's jump on over. And hopefully I can press the right magic buttons. And you should be able to see the first question. What I've just done is done a little bit of a keynote. So each page has got another question. So question 1, when and how did your fountain pen journey begin? So I've got really 2 answers to this. The first one is I first started using fountain pens when I'm going to say about 13. I went to a school in Scarborough in the UK where I grew up. I went to school in Scarborough in the UK, which is where I grew up. And a mouthful of tea. I know it's hard to see because it's got a little screen, but we've got the Star Wars mug today. And at that school, we had a history teacher, and he insisted that we use fountain pens. So everybody had a fountain pen. The one I had, it was a Parker. I can't remember what model. Chances are, I know it wasn't the Jotter, but it might have been something. It may have been something like a Latitude. Bought from W.H. Smith's, which was really the only place you could really get them because that was the only stationery type shop where I grew up. So, yeah, had this then. So going all the way through school for history, we had to use a fountain pen. When I left school, I actually did keep using it. I mean, one of the things he did do is he got me hooked. But it wasn't my main driver. It was something I'd pull out when I was doing something fancy. So maybe when I was, wanting to sign something nice that looked nice. And then occasionally I'd go through spurts when I would use it as a main driver. I'd use cartridges. That's all I knew about, really. We didn't know much about bottled ink, apart from things like Parker Twink. So that went on and on for a number of years. Then in 2019, that's where I was getting one of these, let's start using a fountain pen again. So I've got my Parker Sonnet that I had then. I had I think it's a Frontier, a Parker Frontier and a Parker Latitude, I think it is. They were the 3 Parker pens that I had. And, over the years, I'd had them quite a while and the nibs weren't the best. I think a lot of that is because of how I used to treat them. I didn't understand about how best to clean them, so I would be banging them and pressing down hard to try and get ink flowing. So I started doing research then into fountain pens. And that's when I discovered this whole wide world of fountain pens. I discovered AliExpress. I discovered eBay. Obviously I knew about eBay and AliExpress, but I discovered fountain pens on them. And so I started buying some cheap fountain pens. Most of the pens I bought initially, they were under $10. In fact, the first one I got was a Wingsun 3008 or 3009. I can't remember which one it was. It was that number anyway. And essentially, now that I know, it's like a like a TWSBI Eco knockoff. I think it was something like $7. It was dirt cheap. And obviously in fact, I'm telling you a lie. That came slightly later. The first actual pen that I got was a Pilot Metropolitan. and I got the converter with it, and I bought 2 bottles of ink. I got Pilot Irishizoku Shinryoku, which is a nice green ink, and Pilot Irishizoku Momiji, which is like I thought it was a red, but it's not. It's more of a purple. So they were the first couple of inks that I got. Then I went onto AliExpress and started finding them. So yeah, the Metropolitan was certainly the first one. I think that was about $27. After I've had a couple of these pens from AliExpress, obviously digging around, looking at forums, reading various stuff, then I got an Eco. I got an Eco with an extra fine nib, because at the time that's what I thought I'd like. And then bit by bit, it's really grown from there. For a long time, I was only buying pens from China, or pens that were under 50 Aussie dollars. I think the most expensive one I bought in the first year was a TWSBI Diamond 580, and I still love that. Again, that was one I bought that with a fine nib. As I've developed my journey, I found I didn't quite like the fine nib, so I bought another nib unit for it, and then so I bought another. My brain's gone dead. I bought a broad nib unit and swapped them over. So that's really how I got going. Question number 2. Favourite inks in the beginning. What are your go-to inks now? So in the beginning, obviously, if we go right the way back, it was the Pilot Quink cartridges. Generally, I would get black. Not an interesting colour, not a jump in your face colour, but it did what I wanted. It let me get ideas out of my head onto paper. Not so much in a way I enjoy, but we were getting there. We were learning. I'll say the first 2 bottles of ink I got, they were the Pilot Irishizoku. Quite liked them. I then wanted to start exploring, so I think it was a Robert Oster ink I got next. I got it from Pulp Addiction here in Australia. I then thought, well, I was looking and seeing all these different inks, because obviously I was watching YouTube videos by then. I was hooked. And what I did is I found that, again, Pulp Addiction and also Desk Bandit, both here in Australia, they did ink samples. So what I started doing then was ordering ink samples. I've got a load of them now. I've got about 50 maybe ink samples. I'm slowly working through them. And the inks I tended to buy, the bottles, were Robert Oster. And I was thinking, well, they're quite expensive. So looking around again, I found, again with Pulp Addiction, they did Diamine inks. So I got a couple of Diamine inks from there. Quite liked them. Was getting quite into what was the Diamine inks. And that's when I discovered Cult Pens over in the UK. So with discovering Cult Pens, off I went, toddled away. And yes, brain's gone dead again. So yeah, discovered Cult Pens. So off I went on the website, found a couple of pens that I wanted, found some paper. I ordered, at the time I still thought Rhodia was the best paper ever. So I ordered some Rhodia notepads. They were half the price of what they were to get here. I ordered a whacking load of Diamine inks. I made sure that what I did is I got to the amount that I needed to spend to get free delivery. So that was ordered. And one of the things I did find, and I still do find, when I order from the UK, certainly from Cult Pens, I get something delivered quicker from the UK than I do from ordering in Australia. Australian postal system is horrendous. I would order something, and yes, you get a really good tracking. So I'd order from Pulp Addiction. They're based over in Melbourne. They would post it the same day. They were very good. I'd get the tracking number. I could see it's picked up the same day. It would then get to their warehouse, and it would look like it was sitting in their warehouse for about a week. What I think is happening is it wasn't actually sitting in the warehouse. I believe they transport stuff standard post via train. Melbourne to Perth is quite a journey. Eventually it would hit Perth. It would sit in the Perth warehouse for a day. It would then be sent to our local distribution centre where it would sit for a day, and then it would be delivered. So usually anything I order from Pulp Addiction, I always allow 2 weeks for it to be delivered, and I find that that's usually about right. Ordering from Cult Pens in the UK, they use a courier. I think it's DHL, I might be wrong, but they use a courier service. So I order from Cult Pens. Again, I see the thing, it's being packed on the same day, get the tracking number. Same day, I see it at Heathrow Airport. 2 days later, I see it at Perth Airport. And then normally 1 or 2 days after that, I receive it. So I generally find an order from Cult Pens I get delivered in under a week. Absolutely amazing. Halfway around the world, under a week. Same country. Yes, I know it's a big country, but you're talking nearly 2 weeks. So what my go-to inks now, you may notice with a lot of my writing samples, Diamine. I love Diamine inks. I think they're really nice. They're saturated. They behave well. They've got a good choice. You know, I've got a couple of the shimmer inks. Not 100% happy with them because they do tend to cause some flow issues in my pens. So one of the things I do with all the shimmer inks, they only go into pens that I know I can easily pull apart and clean. Getting into Dominant Industry at the moment, quite like Dominant Industry. One of the things I have found in terms of ink colour, initially I was only ordering things like blues with the occasional green and red. Then I bought, I think it was a Robert Oster sample of Cafe Crema, and really liked that, so I bought a bottle of it. And one of the things which has surprised me is, I'm actually jumping into the next question. Hold that thought. How have your ink and pen tastes changed over time? So we'll carry on with the ink. So I got Cafe Crema, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. I really like brown inks. I find that my tendency at the moment is, if I'm going to be ordering inks, there's always at least 1, if not 2 browns in the order. They're very nice though. I really like brown ink. And I've got dark inks, so things like Dominant Industry Winterwood, very dark with like gorgeous green, I'm going to say a green sheen to it. I've also got Dominant Industry Winterwood, Lungo, Dominant Industry Lungo, Robert Oster Cafe Crema, Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. I've got loads of different browns that I like. I'm just going to quickly nip over to the comments. Now, this will be interesting. Whoops. Let's go back. I've got to work out now how I can switch over to my comment view. What I'll do, we'll come back. I'll go camera only whilst we look at the comments. So, Brett Clark, definitely overdressed if I was in Utah. Blonde Scales 1, same as if was in Arkansas. Brett, firework rules, very relaxed in Utah. Wet winter and spring. Blonde Scales, Cult Pens have the pre-orders for Ink Vent available. They sure have, and I haven't ordered it yet, but I will be pre-ordering. I will be pre-ordering from Cult Pens. That's where I've got the last 2 that I've had. Not sure when I'll pre-order. I mean, they're not shipping till October. What I want to do is, when I do the pre-order, is I want to order some paper as well. I'm not desperate for the paper, so I don't mind waiting. But when I checked the other day, they haven't got any black and red paper. And I like black and red, and that seems to be the only place that I can get it when I'm combining with other things. Jodie Miller, Cult Pen's great for Diamine inks, yeah. Fast shipping to the US. Yeah, I've recorded last week an ink comparison that'll go out, actually goes out on Friday, where I'm comparing 2 Diamine inks. One that I bought here in Australia and the other one that I bought in the UK, or bought from Cult Pens. Half the price. Absolutely gobsmacked. I mean, we're not talking a massive amount. We're not talking about a lot. Do you know, I cannot get this out today. Let's see if tea helps. We're not talking about a massive amount of money, but it's definitely a saving. Tom Moore, Sailor 50 States, Texas. I'll be honest with you, I haven't got any Sailor. I'll be honest, I don't have any Sailor inks at all. I have looked at that, but I don't know if this is on a future question. Yeah, it's on question number 7. The wife stopped me from buying inks. I'm on an ink freeze. At the moment, I'm up to about 160 different inks. So I've got to use some of them up. A lot of them are small bottles or samples. Yeah, so that's 50 States, Texas is brown. Blonde Scales pre-ordered today with some notebooks. Yeah, that's exactly why I'm looking at the notebooks. I say I'm going to wait until they get some black and red, then I'll order that. Let's jump back over to the questions. Just launch that going again. And we can go to there. So pen tastes. As I said really at the beginning, I started off buying, I'm going to use the word cheap. They weren't cheap, you know. Cheap is such a loaded word. I've just realised I've still got the comment up. Let me just go and do that. I know you're seeing a little bit of behind the magic screens here. There we go. Hopefully that will disappear now. So yeah, I started off a lot of Chinese pens. When I look at my collection, I would say at least 2/3, if not more, are pens from China, cheap pens. You know, yes, some of them start to get a bit pricey. One of the ones that I got from China fairly early on was after watching one of Doug Rathbun's videos, is the Moonman M800. Oh, I love that pen, I really do. I love the shape of it. Why I got that is, at the time, I loved the look of the Leonardo Memento Zeros, just could not afford it. And that's why I thought, let's get the Moonman M800s. Really loved it. Ended up with 4 of them. I got 2 with the Moonman nib, 2 with the bottle nib. So I've got each colour of the M800. I have swapped a couple of the nibs around now. It's number 6 nib, that's a beauty, so it's easy to swap. But once I got them, they led me to buy my first expensive pen, which was a Leonardo Memento Zero Grande. And what I've done is I found that that's led me to buy some more pricier pens. Nowadays, very different. This year so far, so this is what, the 2nd of July, so January, February, March, April, May, June. So we're halfway through the year. I've bought 2 pens. And both of those were pens made by Australian makers. This year, my focus is pens that are made in Australia. So I've now got 4 of those. There is another maker. Some of the pens he produces, I follow him on Instagram and Facebook. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're like woods and resins, really pretty. Problem is, he doesn't put prices on it. So I've got no idea how much they're going to cost. And that puts me off because I don't want to contact him to say, look, how much for a pen? And him to say some ridiculous high number, and I'm going to turn around and say, no. I'd rather have an idea of, not necessarily the exact price, but I'd like to see something like saying, I do pens from $200 upwards or $300 upwards. Doesn't do that. So that's why I haven't ordered any more from there. I may order... that's still up there. I thought we'd got rid of that. There we go. I think that should work better now. No, it's still up there. I don't know. I can't get rid of this message. So that's how. So now I say I'm looking at more expensive pens. I am also looking at doing an order from China soon. I've got a whole load in my box. But again, they're not so much the cheaper end of it. So the ones I'm looking at, there's the Moonman M400. I saw Chris Rapp did a review of one of those earlier this week. Like the look of that. There's some fully wet pens that I want to put into that order. Also getting ready for December for my Ink Vent series. there are a number of pens that my wife is going to order as well. Obviously, we order it together. In a way, I do know what's coming. But as soon as it arrives, I don't even open it. She opens it. She takes the pen. So I don't usually see them until I actually see them on the ink pen. But as I say, I usually have a rough idea what's coming. I think, though, this is likely to be my only China order this year. Then again, later on in the year, I'll be looking at some more Australian-made pens. I just need to find them. And I may go back to Just Turn-ins and get another couple from there because I really love that Just Turn-in pen. It's actually within reach just over on the side. Right, next question. Do you know I keep gossiping on here? Are there any inks and pens that you have yet to try but would like to? Again, this actually ties in with the next question for the pen, so I'll leave that one. Inks I'd like to try. I'd like to try some Sailor inks. I've seen a few samples of them a couple of times when I've gone to a pen club meeting. They look quite nice. The only thing which puts me off them is, yes, some of them are nice and saturated. I tend to like saturated inks. And I think to get the interesting ones, that's where I need to, look at the paler, the less saturated ones. They seem to have, is it chroma shading and more of the interesting characteristics. Haven't committed to that. And as I say, at the moment, I'm on an ink buying freeze. The next question. I'll say this is why I didn't talk about the pen. What is your holy grail pen? This is the easiest question to answer. It's the Visconti Homo Sapiens Dark Ages. I absolutely love the look of that pen. Can't afford it. No way I'd. And to be honest, I think the last time I checked, it was to buy it from, I can't remember if it was Cool Pens or Apple Boom. It was something like 1,100 Aussie dollars. I looked at it, I drooled a little bit, and I thought, there's absolutely no way I can justify spending that amount of money on a fountain pen. If I was going to spend that amount of money, I could have a brand new iPad and still have money to spare. I could replace, a whole load of stuff. I could buy a new camera to do my videos with. At the moment, I do all my videos on my iPhone. It'd be nice to have a dedicated camera. I could upgrade my sound system. At the moment, I use a Blue Yeti mic. I could get a Rodecaster. I'd love to get a Rodecaster so that I can have more control of my audio and, some mics to go with that. All for less than that 1,100. So, yeah, it's a pen. Absolutely love the way it looks. I'd love to say I'd get one, but I won't because, it's just way, 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 way too much. Next question. How many pens do you currently own? So this one shocked me. This is the one where I did some prep. Let's just come out of this for a second. Let me press the right button. Fetch up the spreadsheet. So as I showed a few weeks ago, I have a database where I keep a list of all my pens, my inks and everything. So what I did is I've dumped it. I have the Nextport function. I must have thought ahead. And I've got 138 fountain pens at the moment. Absolutely gobsmacked me. When I actually did sum up how much they cost, because on my dump I put out the cost. I summed that all up. I hope the wife never finds out because, oh my God, I was absolutely gobsmacked when I saw the total. If you'd have asked me, I'd have said maybe a third of what I thought it was. But we can see here, looking at my pens, they're in price order. So 90 of the pens are under 50 Aussie dollars. So it means there's only 40, let's call it 50 pens that are over 50 Aussie dollars. Of those over, if we then say, right, under 100, 110 of them are under 100 Aussie dollars. So we're talking they're 30-ish that are over. So it wasn't too bad. it's just when I looked at, somebody asked me the question yesterday, which was before I'd done this, and I said, well, I think about 100 maybe. When I saw it was 138. I know it shows 139, but that's because row 1 is the header. I was a little bit surprised by that. Seeing as I'm showing the spreadsheet, let's jump on back. So we've got Jody Miller. Is Black and Red a brand of paper? It's not so much brand of paper, it's a notepad brand. The paper they use is Oxford Optic paper. Here in Australia, we're limited. The only books that I can find with Oxford Optic paper are these, which hopefully you can see. These are B5 in size. Buy them from Officeworks. Officeworks also do an A4 pad, but I like the A5 size. So yeah, that's why Black and Red notepad brand, and certainly in the past, things like this. This is Black and Red. I'm not going to show you in it because this is my journal. And that was from Talk Pens. So that's where I found I can get a whole wide range. And when I order, I order a number of different styles, but I might order 10 loads of paper in total, just so I can get plenty to last me. Brett Clark is obsessed with Sailor Yakamuri. Blonde Scales 1. Yeah, it's very similar. Early pens, cheap Asian brands. Again, over here in Australia, I've not seen any monthly pen boxes. I've seen an ink one, but I don't know, didn't seem to really excite me. I like the idea of these monthly boxes that you can get, where you get that surprise, you don't know what's going to be in it. Brett Clark, understanding wanting price. I do know what you're saying there, Brett. This was when I was talking about the guy that makes them. I don't know about. It's just me. It's something I've never done. I've never been happy buying anything where they don't advertise prices. I'm sorry. I was just seeing the next comment. Then we go Pens and Pencils Plus. First rule of Pen Club: never count your pen. Yes, I agree with that completely. That's one which I chuckled at a minute ago. Yeah, never ever look at it. Brett Clark, yeah, the only reason that it's got the price on, to be honest, I was interested. So it's just the price that I paid for the pen. That's not the total that I've got on there. I've hidden that on sheet 2. Oh, it's just gobsmacked. Let's go back and to the questions. This is going on way longer than what I thought. I was expecting this to be a lot quicker. How many pens do you currently own? We just answered that. Do you have a limit on pens or inks in your collection? Absolutely not. Is it a number? No. Is it a feeling? No. When do you know you've reached your maximum? Well, I'm a bit of a collector of things. I hate throwing things out. I'll know when I've reached my maximum when I'm dead. When I die. That's when I'll have reached my maximum. I don't intend to put a limit on it. What I might do is, certainly with the more expensive pens, if I haven't used a pen in over a year, then I might look at getting rid of it. Now, that might be through selling it. That might be through, swapping it with someone. With the cheaper pens, if I am talking to someone and they're interested in fountain pens, I might give them one. I always do carry with me some cheaper pens so that I can quite happily give a lot of them away. But it's also nice to be able to have the opportunity to swap things around. One of the pens I've been using recently is this Hongdian Light of Hope, which I got 2.5 years ago. So it's nice to have them to go back to. Inks, yeah, the limit is what my wife tells me, and at the moment, as I say, I'm on an ink buying freeze until I've got rid of some of the inks I currently have. The only inks I seem to get really are going to be the Inkvent inks. What would you do if another pen or ink came along? So what I've got with this, again, I think I showed it quickly when I showed my app. I have a section where I build my to-buy list, and that just keeps growing and growing and growing. If I see a nice pen, if somebody tells me about a nice pen, that one goes onto the list. And then when I've got some cash, spared, and I'm able to go and do some buying, I then look through the list and I look at, when I look through it, which ones jump out at me. I say this year I'm theming around Australian pens. Next year it might be different. I might look then at, more global pens. Next year, though, again, it might be this year with buying pens in Australia. They're handmade. They're not cheap, consequently. I don't mind that, so that's why I've only bought 2 pens this year. So next year it might be something similar. I might save money to buy a more pricier pen. I say I may end up deciding, look, bite the bullet and let's save up and get that Homo sapiens. Doubt it, but we might see. I've also seen other pens though in Europe that I like the look of. There's Monte Grappa. Looks like they've got some nice pens. I wouldn't mind getting some pens from English or British makers as well. So that's all the questions answered. Let's go back to the comments. Blonde Scales 1. The pen boxes were part of the subscription offerings from someone doing planner supply subscriptions. Yeah, I say I do like the idea of these subscriptions. I think it's a way of really trying out things that are different. Helps if I press the right button so you can actually see the comment on screen. Glenn Polo, what makes some fountain pens so expensive? I'd love to try some of those high-end pens, but the prices are outrageous. I could buy a motorcycle for the price of a Visconti or a Mont Blanc. Yeah, sorry. Oh, poor nose is running. I think a lot of it is things like if they're handmade, that is the amount of work that goes into them, the quality control, like the uniqueness of the material. I mean, that Homo sapiens made from the lava rock, and then they've got to mix it with resin, so there's a process involved there. So I can see where the price is, but it just seems an awful lot of money. I say I've got so many other things I'd like to buy if I had that sort of money laying around. Any more questions yet? No. So what we'll do is we'll now swap over and we'll go to the camera view. So I'll just scoot on over. Oops. Kick the camera so you can go all nice and dizzy. Let me just reposition this. I've done so well getting it positioned earlier. And I'm turning it on an angle now slightly. So, what pens have I been using this week? Sunday was the Bennu Talisman. Let me just try and straighten this camera up. It's all over the place. This is the... what's it called again? You aren't even getting on camera. Here we go. I call it my Christmas pen. They called it Dragon's Blood. I can see why that. Only Bennu I've got. My issue with Bennus, they're very, very sparkly. So in here, we've got the Bennu Talisman. Just got a broad nib. The ink by Diamine. It's Garland. Really like this ink, and I find this as a combo is really nice. Why aren't I seeing my writing? That's because I'm looking at the wrong preview. Problem is now, where I am, I'm seeing the actual live stream, which is about 30 seconds behind the what I'm actually saying. So when you hear me talking, it's from 30 seconds in the past. Yeah, I do like this. I don't know if you can see there, we've got a gorgeous red sheen, and then we've got hints of a blue shimmer in there. I do like this as a combo. One of the things I do find though, because it's got that shimmer in there, it does cause some flow issues. So this is one I know I can easily pull out and clean that nib unit, and do that quite often. Wasn't right with this next one, purely because it's out of ink. So then I had the Hondian, the Light of Hope. In there, I had Diamine Silent Night. So I've written this dry. I haven't cleaned it out yet. There's a teeniest bit of ink there in the converter. It's a bit of a thin pen. I say I've had this ages. Whenever I talk about this, it's the name that does it for me, the Light of Hope. It's so important to have that hope. Next up, we've got the Parker Jotter. There we go. Hold it down. Little tiny pen. This is a pen that was made in 1996. I know that from the date marking that was on the cap. I don't know if we can see that. There we go. I think it's IY, which translated to, I think it was the third quarter of 1996. Nice pen, very small pen. It was bought last year by my daughter. She bought it from a car boot sale. She paid a whole £2 for it. No, a whole pound for it even. And then that was sent to me over here in the UK. So this is a Parker Jotter. This isn't the nib that came with it. The nib that came with it was quite scratchy. I don't know if you can see this nib on here. It's a teeny tiny nib. I had a Colt Pens Mini, which was made for them by Kaweco, and on there was this Kaweco nib. It was another small nib. It fits on this pen perfect, and it's a gorgeous line. This is a double broad or an extra broad nib. The ink in here is by Pure Pens, which is a Welsh company. And it's called Celtic Sea or Celtic Sea. I know it should be Celtic. I'm always calling it Celtic. This is force of habit from my childhood. Where I grew up in Scarborough, there was a lot of Scotch people, and most of them supported Celtic. So the next pen, Pilot E95S. Love this pen. It looks really tiny when we see it like this, but when it's posted, it's a really nice sizable pen. This has got a 14 karat gold inlaid nib. So we've got a Pilot E95S. Sometimes I think it's called the Elite. It's got that medium nib, 14 karat gold. The ink in here is by Diamine. And it's Pick Me Up. Another nice brown ink, and not sure if you can see that. There's a nice, I think it dries like a silvery greeny type sheen to it. Next pen, again I won't write with this one because it's out of ink. Does show a little bit about how things are different. You know, the E95S, 200 Aussie dollars. The Jinhao 250, $7. It's a 250. I don't know why. I keep calling it an X250. I said, not sure why I do that. I think my brain needs to be taken out and cleaned through a little bit. Hopefully this one will write. This is the Pure Pens, Fully Wen 017. Very pretty pen. Loads of colour in this. Got blues, got like reddy oranges, yellows, greens. Quite a busy looking pen. Very nice though. Feels extremely nice to the touch. It's got a number 6 size nib. Don't plan on changing this nib. So this is, hopefully it will write. There's very, very little ink in here. It's a Fully Wen 017. It's got a medium nib. The ink in here is Diamine Bliss. Very, very smooth nib. I'm not certain yet if I'm going to refill this. As you can see, I've had to really push the converter down to get some ink moving. My pens in use month, although the video only went out 2 days ago, it was actually recorded about 10 days ago. So I'm halfway through that pens in use month. And I tend not to fill pens when I get to that stage, but I'll have to have a look and see what I feel about that. The final pen, Monteverde Ritma. This is in the olive colour. Very heavy pen. You can really feel the weight of this. So with this one, at the start of the month, I had, what was it? My brain's gone dead. I had an ink in here, Diamine Olive Swirl, which was a chameleon ink. Had terrible ink flow issues, which I think was to do with that chameleon, that shimmer. So I've cleaned this out and I've swapped the ink. So now we've got a Monteverde Ritmer. Which has got a broad nib. The ink is Diamine. It's mistletoe. This is from the original Inkvent calendar. It's really nice. I think it's actually not a bad match. Since I've swapped the ink, I've had no ink flow issues. So I think it was all down to the ink. So they're the pens that I've been using this week. Just turn it around so you can have one last look. We've got the Bennu Talisman, Parker Jotta, Pilot E95S, the Fully Wen 017 and that Monteverde Ritmer. Let's scoot on over and we'll go back to the camera. So what things have been going on pen-wise as well? So I've finally finished my dot ding book. This is the one, if you see my shorts, this is what I do my writing practice in, and this is what I take a photograph for the shorts. Finished it yesterday. It was a cheapish book from AliExpress. The paper, it's all right, but I don't get any sheen coming off it. I don't get any shimmer. Doesn't really show the ink up too well. I've now swapped to this one. This is an Anchor I Am Recycled notebook. This came from Kmart. That's like a local big box store here in Australia. So I've only started it today. So let me just show you here. It's got a little bit more in there. So I'm using the Ranga Santa today. And I can see a little bit of the gold sheen coming through from that Diamine Spiced Apple. Certainly a lot more than I was seeing on that dot ding. It was a cheap notebook. Can't remember exactly how much. I would reckon it'd be about $5 Aussie. But I don't mind trying them. And as I say, I use it mainly for writing practice. This week's videos, the videos that have gone out. So last Sunday, we had the Fountain Pen Focus on the Light of Hope. That's why I was using it this week. Very nice pen. Very pleased with this pen. Tuesday, we had the wrap-up, so my June pens. Friday, we had the Christmas in July, so that's my pens for the coming month. So the main theme for Christmas in July is it was all Inkvent inks, so only inks from Inkvent. But I also tried to theme the pens a little bit around that as well. So things like I've got the Ranga Santa in there. It's actually called a Santa but look at that. That's Father Christmas, isn't it? I had the Fully Wen because it's bright, like Christmas decorations. I had the Jinao 250. Again, it's like this gold colour, again, like Christmas decorations. The Pilot E95S, the material of the cap is called champagne. So I've tried to make sure that all the pens I'm using are also themed in some loose way around Christmas. Videos that are coming up next. Saturday's video. So yesterday's video, which is on my Tricky Little Questions channel. That was where I was looking at the Doomsday Clock. This is something, it's put out every year about, when is it put out? January? Yeah, sometime January. In fact, I think the past few years it's been put out on my birthday. And that's how many minutes we are close to a catastrophic event that could end civilization. Was quite interesting. Videos coming up. I haven't actually got the pen with me. Today's Fountain Pen Focus is on the Sailor Pro Gear Slim. It's a blue-green nebula. Very nice pen. It's my only Sailor Gold nib pen. I do have a steel nibbed Sailor, and I'm toying maybe doing a comparison between the two in a future video. Tuesday, we're going to be taking a look at the Wing Sung 601 versus the Jinhao 51A, so two hooded nibbed pens. Friday is my July ink comparison. There we're going to be taking a look at Diamine Oxblood. That's the ink I bought in Australia, and comparing that against Diamine Writer's Blood, which is one from Cult Pens. Very similar looking inks, but there are actually quite a lot of differences between them. On Saturday, we're going to be talking about my productivity statement. You can see that behind me, one small step. Each quarter I have a productivity statement. I'll be changing that today. And it's positioned behind my desk, so every day it's the first thing I see when I come in my office. And it just it reinforces what my focus is for that quarter. And this quarter was one small step. And I'll talk more about that on Saturday. And then next Sunday, obviously we'll have the live. Next Sunday's focus is on the Pen BBS 308. Another medium-priced pen. Let's jump to the comments. Blonde Scales like the sparkles. I do. I do like the look of the shimmering inks, especially when I'm doing things that are just for me. But they can cause some problems with ink flow. Brett Clark loves his Ritma. Got it in a subscription. I was recommended this by one of the viewers, Paul. A number of times he said I should try a Ritma. Really pleased with it. Really enjoy it. Very nice. I said the problem is it was the ink was causing the flow issue. So I need to try a couple more inks just to make sure it was that. But yeah, quite a nice pen. Brett again, good to hear there are Kmarts still. So I think the Kmarts here, I've never been to the US, so I never saw what Kmart was there. Not the same company. Kmart here, it's completely Australian owned. But what I think they did is they bought a whole load of names from the US. So that group, they've got Kmart, they've got Target, Officeworks, Coles Supermarkets. They did have one called Bilo as well. But yeah, it's a big box store all over the place in Australia. And I do get a lot of notepads from there. They tend to be quite cheap. Tom Morley, Writer's Blood Super. It is. That's one of the things I have to be careful with Writer's Blood. I find if I'm having problems with ink flow in a pen, that's a good one to try out because I know how wet the ink is. Blonde Scales 1. So I assume you're talking about the shimmer. Yeah, the sparkles on the Bennu. I love this. I really do. I love this Dragon's Blood. I say to me, I always call this my Christmas pen because green sparkles, red sparkles, that's the baubles on your tree. There's a couple of other Bennu pens I quite like the look of. A lot of them, though, they are too in your face to me. I think, there's a nice brown looking one. Is it Bourbon? Something like that. Quite like the look of that one. Joseph Aziz, Conklin, Twisby, Visconti Breeze, Ebonite are all favourites. Yep. Let me see if I've actually got it handy. I can't remember if... Yep. So I do have an Ebonite... Not an Ebonite. Visconti Breeze here. This is the blueberry colour. And I've also got inked up at the moment. There's a Conklin Gerograph. Twisby. So I've got a number of Twisby pens. I've got a number of Ecos. I've got the 580. I've only got the 1580. There we go. I love the demonstrator nature of this. Twisby Draco I've got as well. And I've got a Twisby VAC 700R. Like all of them. One of the things, tomorrow's recording day, one of the things I'm going to be doing tomorrow, just showing you this. This is my inked pens. I've seen a number of videos where people have gone through and just shown all the pens that I inked up at the time. So I'm going to record that tomorrow. Not sure when it's going out. I think it's sometime later this month. I've got about a 2-week lead time at the moment on my pens. What other things been going on? Oh, we spoke last time about possibly me talking about the books I'm reading, and hopefully if people want to read along. I finished this week a book called Harbour Street by Anne Cleeves. If any of you have seen the TV show Vera, which is about a Newcastle-ish area-based detective, Anne Cleves is the author, and these are the books that I've been reading. So a lot of the TV series is based off these books. Quite enjoy it, but I've read 6 books now in a row by her, so it's getting a bit boring. So I've swapped over, and I started last night The Colour of Magic by Terry Pratchett. I've got all of his books. This is a reread. To give you an idea of this book, let me see here. I don't think it says the date it was published. It just says when it was originally published. But you can see how old it is by the colour of the paper. This is one of the books I actually brought with me from the UK when I moved to Australia. So it's at least 18-year-old, if not quite a lot more. So there's nothing actually in here saying when it was published, which is a shame because that would have been nice to know. So yeah, I'm doing a read through of this. If you want to join in, I say I've only read the first few pages. Love Terry Pratchett. I love the way that he's got the humour in his books. I also love the way that each book, although part of the same universe, is very much standalone. So, here we've got Rincewind, we've got Two Flower, I think it is, and we've got the luggage. That's what I've met so far. I think Conan the Barbarian's in there, something like that. But then you've got Mort, where you've got Death coming in. I think Death's quite a funny character. I love Granny Weatherwax. I absolutely love watching those, reading those. Then you've got, is it Commander Grimes? There's a massive number of books. So I'm going to start rereading them. An entire bookcase, the entire one shelf is purely Terry Pratchett. Jodie Miller, have you seen yes, I've seen the Beam Me Up pen. Oh, love it. I just can't justify the price. That's the only downside. I know it's hand painted. I can justify the price. Trying to get that past the CFO, well, I think I'll be lectured if I want to spend that sort of money. I say it's nice, but as much as I'd love to have one, I think I would have been more likely to have bought one if it had actual Star Trek characters on it. I know a lot of them are just like normal characters or normal spacey type stuff. But if it had Star Trek on it, I might have been able to swing it past the wife. If you've been watching it, I don't know if Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I've just had the 3rd episode of season 2 now. Absolutely blowing it. I'm not going to spoil them. They're absolutely blowing it out the water. Really good. I loved this last episode. I love the humour in it. I know it's been over the internet. They've got essentially Captain Kirk in it. Absolutely superb. Really recommend it. If you like that sort of stuff, really love Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So that's everything I've got. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's live. We're up to an hour again. I'm gonna have to learn to be more brief. Thank you all for coming on. Hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the thumbs up button. I'd love to get those thumbs up. It all helps drive the YouTube algorithm. Any comments, anything like that, drop them down below. Let's keep this going. Anything you'd like me to talk about. So in my live videos, I do that the first section is like a discussion. Love to get ideas of things you'd like me to talk about. I'll say when I saw this 8 questions tag, that's why I thought, yeah, let's give that one a try. Anyway, thank you everybody, and I'll talk to you again next week.